Hi, my name is Chip Hart. I'm here to speak about open source software in a pediatric practice. We're going to hit a couple open source subjects today. Glad to see you all here. If you pop open your iPad and swipe the thing and pull up the discussion, I think it says OSS for PCC OSS for Peds. You can follow along with me. I now have to open it up myself, pardon me. What we're going to talk about is how a pediatric practice is a small business. A lot of people forget about the fact that a pediatric practice is nothing more, very often in a lot of ways, a small business. And there are many tools available for small businesses that pediatric practices don't take advantage of, that are free, often better than what's available commercially. And of course, my wife calls me in the middle of every one of my talks of all time. That's awesome. So I'm going to begin. If you have your iPad and you open up to the first slide, I just want to do a quick definition of what is open source software. A lot of people have misconceptions about it. Open source software is very simply computer software whose source code is available under a license that permits the users to change, copy, distribute the software either in modified or unmodified form. And it's different from source code, the sort of software people usually envision, something like Microsoft Windows, say, which you don't own, but you license from Microsoft and you put on a computer, and the only configuration that you're allowed to do to it is what they allow you to do to it within the software. You're not allowed to copy it for your friends, and you're not allowed to make changes that you might need for yourself. Open source software is very different in that the software code and often the tools to work with the software are made available for free. And why I would promote it is because it represents a significant opportunity for any small business to improve its bottom line. Open source software, and I'm going to give some examples, some pretty cute examples, can help you get, if you consider open source software for your practice, it gives you a greater selection of software tools to choose from. It will save you money because the cost is typically free, and it gives you greater security as well. In any small business, pediatricians, not having the advantage of a huge margin, in any small business, that kind of advantage is quite worthwhile. So let me give you an example with numbers on it. If you, in your iPad, if you turn to the slide that has a picture of the inside of a computer. Just a couple weeks ago, when I said I'll do this presentation, I went to Dell and I grabbed one of their cheaper machines. I just did a quick configuration, and I priced out what it would cost to purchase and run a Dell computer using open source software versus the typical commercial software that's available for you. So the Dell, the cheap server, the cheap little desktop rather that they have is the Dell E521. There's probably a new one already replaced it, but the concept's the same. It's $359 delivered from Dell. If you need to put virus software in and you were to purchase McAfee or Norton, it would cost you $30 to $100 a year to do that. If you bought Microsoft Office Small Business, which I'd like to remind pediatric offices, because I visit a lot of them, and when I go in there, I see that they all have Microsoft Word on every single machine in the office, and I know they didn't buy it. And I sometimes feel obligated to remind them that that's illegal. All right, and so if you were to purchase that, it would cost you $279. Yes, maybe you can get an educational discount or something like that, but that's, it's got a real expense to it. If you need to create Adobe handouts and stuff like that, which more and more physicians do, and certainly everyone here who's giving a presentation likes to have Adobe. We all had to do this for today. Adobe Acrobat's $299. There are other alternatives, of course, and that's what I'm going to talk about. And PKZip, if you have to unzip files, that's if you purchase the commercial license, it's $99. Now, there are many, many, many other programs that you might need to purchase for your office, from QuickBooks to web design tools and so on and so forth. And when I show this slide to people all the time, they say, well, I've never paid $299 or whatever for Microsoft Word, or I've never paid $99 for PKZip, and chances are that's because they've discovered a free version, an open source version, and this is what I'm talking about, if they're not breaking the law, that is. And so what I want to do is give some really good examples of the tools, first of all, that are in use by people every day, and then some acute examples for pediatric offices that they might use in their practice to save themselves money. a lot of people aren't aware that the entire internet, the backbone of the internet, is run on open source software. So Apache, which is the primary web server internationally, it's the most common web server internationally is open source software. Anybody can download it for free, install it on their own system, and make whatever changes they want to it, and it doesn't cost them a dime. Firefox, which is now the second most popular browser on the internet, probably the safest browser on the internet, or at least of the major ones, that's free. Thunderbird is a free mail reader. OpenOffice, which I'll get into more in a little bit, is a free Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel replacement. If you've ever visited anyone from Amazon to, well, frankly, if you've ever shopped online, those web pages ultimately have probably used an SQL database, and most of them use MySQL or PostgreSQL, and those are all free and freely available. Undoubtedly, you have visited sites using Drupal, Joomla, Mambo, or any one of the 24 major content management systems that websites are designed on. PCC's website uses it. The post office uses it. I mean, it's literally tens of thousands of sites that are wide open. Squirrel Mail is, I believe, the most popular mail reading program for local cable systems and stuff like that. So if you've signed up with a cable company to get your internet in your office and you read your email through a little browser, well, chances are you're using Squirrel Mail. A lot of people switched to Gmail, but in the good old days, Squirrel Mail was everywhere. If you're on a mailing list, all right, if you're on one of them AAP mailing lists, if you are on a mailing list involving, your favorite rock band or whatever the case may be, there's a pretty good chance that it's using Mailman or Majordomo, if not Listserv. Those are open source projects. And then really the fundamental backbone of the rest of the internet is run on Linux machines and Unix machines, and the Linux machines are all open source. Before I give you some examples of what those might be, or what some of the better tools are, where would I go get it? If I wanted to wake up tomorrow and said, what kind of open source software might I be interested in, might I want to use, might save me money, I've got a list here on the slides of where the most common places are that you can get it. Obviously, like everyone else, we just go to Google and type in what we want, and usually we can find it. But there are some places where these things are collected. SourceForge and open source, and Google itself has some really great open source tools for people to go. So later on, I would just encourage you to go down this and actually think of it a little bit like a shopping list. And ultimately, you might find, even if you find just one tool that you didn't know existed that will save you a little bit of money or make yourself a little bit more secure, save you a little bit of time, it's, as a small business, obviously you've benefited. In the good old days, or by the good old days I only mean like 4 or 5 years ago, we used to get a lot of pushback about open source software. And I say we because the company I work for at PCC, we are Linux based, our server model. And I would get over and over and over the same kinds of objections. Open source software is incompatible with the tools I use and need every day. That's a myth. You're using open source software every day as much, if not more, than you're using closed source software. You just don't realize it. I'm a big fan of using something called OpenOffice. I have not paid for a Microsoft product in probably 15 years, but OpenOffice is a Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint Access replacement that's absolutely free. And the reason I switched to it originally wasn't because of cost, but because I spent a week working on an Excel spreadsheet for a client that I couldn't get to work, only to discover there was a bug in the Excel cell that I was using. It was a very simple math mistake that I was making over and over and over again. It wasn't very complex, and OpenOffice at the time was really new, and version 1.0, it wasn't even that great, and I popped it into OpenOffice, and it worked, and I've never gone back. And now, today, OpenOffice is as sophisticated and, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, much easier to use than any of the new Microsoft stuff. And what's nice about OpenOffice is that every time I upgrade, I can still read my old files, and vice versa. So if I forgot to upgrade my machine at home, I didn't buy a copy for my machine at home, with Microsoft Office, as you know, old versions of Office can't open any of those files, if you've ever had someone send you a docx file, for example. Another myth that we get often is that open source software is expensive to use, difficult to learn, and requires computer expertise. I think that was true 10 years ago. But I will tell you right now that if I handed anyone here a copy of I don't know, Ubuntu and said, here's a laptop, go load it, you would load it far faster and more easily than you would a Windows machine. And you'd end up with a machine that's faster, more secure, it didn't cost you a penny, and looks just as good, if not better. Another myth is that open source software is not as serious or commercial as closed software. That myth has been exploded for quite a while now, that some of the major open source vendors like Red Hat are publicly traded and doing extremely well, because one of the magic pieces about open source software, even though the code is available for free and you can download and use it for free, you still sometimes need support. So there are companies out there who exist to give support to people who want to use the software. And it's Microsoft, in theory. You can get support from them if you're running Windows in your office. I don't know anyone who's ever called Microsoft support. I've tried emailing them in the past, and sometimes you get a response, I suppose. But there are companies whose business is it is to deliver support to small businesses like pediatric offices, and that they're very commercially viable. And then last but not least, the big myth is that open source software is secure only because it is less popular. The thing that I hear all the time, even though this isn't open source software, is that, oh, the Macs don't get viruses because there aren't as many of them, and that's hogwash. There are enough Macs that any good virus writer would be delighted to write a virus for all the Macs. And in fact, with the Linux machines being the primary backbone of the internet, if someone could write a virus that infected all the Linux web servers internationally, they would be famous and cause a lot of trouble, more trouble than writing for Windows. The fact of the matter is that the open source software, for a variety of reasons, including the fact that literally thousands of highs have gone over their code looking for holes in the software, they're more secure because people will publicly fill in a hole and plug the hole in the dike and fix and patch something just to make it better for everyone. So last but not least, in my final minute, I have a list of examples of open source software packages and their replacements. I could have gone 2 or 3 pages with this. There are many, many other examples, not only in terms of what you might be looking for, but what the answers are. So if you use McAfee and Norton, all right, you can use ClamWin and Spybot. Okay, those are free. And also, just because I'm not trying to beat up Microsoft, the Microsoft Security Essentials, which is free, and you can download for free with Windows, is actually an excellent program. It's not perfect, but it's an excellent program. And almost every friend of mine whose Windows machine I'm asked to help fix, they haven't downloaded it, and they're not using it. And it's something that, rather than pay $100 a year for all the machines in your office, why not download this free tool that does a better job? If you need to create PDFs, not only will OpenOffice create PDFs for you for free, but there are quite a few open source PDF creators. Just before the conference this week on the SOPA mailing list, one of the physicians was lamenting the fact that the PDFs for the presentations this week were saved in a secure fashion, so they couldn't make notes in the PDF as they attended the classes. All right, so I don't know if you realize that. So if you downloaded the files and you wanted to make notes, I have clients who like to make a lot of notes as they attend the events. They couldn't do it. So what I explained is, well, take the PDF that you got from the Academy and print it using one of these free open source tools to another PDF, and you've created a new PDF that you can now edit. And sure enough, everyone did it, and now they're all making their notes. And that was a free solution, as opposed to paying $2.99 for Adobe and having to monkey around that way. It's much easier. If you use Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Draw, and Access, take a look at AbiWord or take a look at OpenOffice. If you go to openoffice.org and click download, you can try it. It's free. And if you happen not to like it, you can remove it. All you've lost is the 15-minute investment in the time to play with it. If you use Internet Explorer, I recommend Firefox or Opera. If you use Microsoft Outlook, I recommend Thunderbird. Internet Explorer and Outlook are responsible for 99.9% of the viruses on the internet. That's where it all happens. That's why we get so much spam. That's why we get these zombie networks. And if you switch to these other 2 products that are free and, in fact, more effective and have much more functionality, I find that people tend to be happier. If you use Instant Messenger, if you don't want to sign up or pay for one of the various messaging programs, you can use Pigeon. But Photoshop, PaintShop Pro, Adobe InDesign, Quark, Inkscape, and GIMP are available for everyone. The list could go on, but the concept is, when in doubt, if you're looking for a tool, go online and see what kind of open source option is available for you, it's typically going to be more secure. It's typically going to have features you wouldn't have otherwise gotten from a commercial package, and frankly, is going to save you money. So that's it. My time is up. I hope everyone enjoyed the event today, and have a good rest of the afternoon. Thank you.